Today, we are diving into just one poem by China's poet Immortal, the one and only Li Bai. And this was written at what was probably the lowest point of his entire life, a moment of just crushing personal and professional failure. It's incredible, though, because out of that failure comes one of the most powerful, most optimistic declarations of hope you will ever read. This is really the story of how a genius, when faced with a dead end, finds the strength not just to walk, but to soar.
So we're going to do something a little unusual. We're actually going to start at the very end of the poem. These are the final lines, and they are just ringing with this massive, unshakable confidence.
Right, and it immediately makes you wonder, what kind of crisis, what depth of despair could possibly lead to a conclusion this powerful? To really understand the victory here, you have to first witness the defeat.
Okay, so let's rewind. Before we get to that defiant cry, there was a moment that just shattered Li Bai's lifelong dream. And we're not talking about a small setback. This was a fundamental rejection of everything he believed he was destined for.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 742 AD. Li Bai gets the call. He's been summoned to the imperial court in the capital. I mean, this is it. This is the absolute pinnacle for any scholar in Tang China. He's a literary rock star, celebrated by the emperor himself. But, the court is a snake pit. It's full of intrigue. And just 2 years later, jealous officials start spreading rumors. They slander him, and the emperor, well, he politely kicks him out with a gift of gold. It's basically a thanks for playing, but you gotta go. And it's at a farewell banquet with friends trying to cheer him up that he writes this very poem.
And that really gets to the core question here, doesn't it? When you are convinced you are meant for greatness, but the very system you want to be a part of just spits you out, what on earth happens to your spirit? Well, Li Bai is about to show us. He's going to take us on a really raw, really emotional journey, and it all starts right there at that banquet table.
So the poem kicks off at this party. His friends, they're doing their best. They're throwing him this lavish feast to honor him. But for Li Bai, he just can't stomach it. All the luxury on the outside is just making the turmoil on the inside feel so much worse.
The poem opens with these sounds of pure luxury. Just listen to the original Chinese. 金樽清酒斗十千, 玉盘珍馐值万钱.
Thus, a golden cup of clear wine costs 10,000 coins. A jade plate of rare delicacies is worth a fortune. You can see his friends have spared absolutely no expense. But this whole fancy display of wealth and honor, it just feels totally empty given how humiliated he is.
And then, just like that, the whole opulent scene is shattered. The rhythm gets choppy. The mood darkens instantly. Listen to this. 听杯投箸不能使, 拔剑四顾心茫然.
I stop the cup, drop the chopsticks, I cannot eat, draw the sword, look all around, my heart bewildered. Wow, so he can't pretend anymore. He physically rejects the feast. And then he does this really shocking, dramatic thing.
I mean, this whole sequence is so cinematic, isn't it? First, you have the physical rejection. He literally drops his chopsticks. Then he lashes out. Drawing his sword at a banquet isn't a threat of violence. It's a huge breach of etiquette. It's this visceral expression of a spirit in so much turmoil, it just can't be contained anymore.
Exactly. And it all leads to that final self-diagnosis, a bewildered heart. He is completely and utterly lost, just adrift in his own failure, with no idea where to go next.
So what does a poet do when they feel this profoundly lost? Well, they project it onto the world around them. Li Bai looks out at the grand landscape of China and he sees his own internal roadblocks made terrifyingly real.
He tries to find a path forward, and he looks first to the Great Yellow River. 玉都黄河冰塞川. I want to cross the Yellow River, but ice chokes the stream. Think about that. The main artery of the empire, a symbol of life and constant movement, is frozen solid. His path is blocked.
Okay, so if the river is blocked, he'll try the mountains.
将登太行，雪满山.
I'll climb the Taihang Mountains, but snow darkens the sky. It's the same thing, an insurmountable obstacle. Every single direction he turns, nature itself seems to be screaming at him, you can go no further.
And this is a perfect example of a really core technique in classical Chinese poetry called bixing. The frozen river, the snowbound mountains, they're so much more than just scenery.
Oh, for sure, they're metaphors. The ice is the political slander that has literally frozen his career. The snow is the overwhelming weight of his dismissal from court. He's using the natural world to paint a picture of his own soul.
Okay, so now at this absolute lowest point, when it feels like the entire world is stacked against him, Li Bai does something pretty remarkable.
He doesn't just collapse into self-pity.
No, he doesn't. He turns to history. He starts looking for precedents, for other people who faced impossible odds and somehow still found their way through.
His mind starts to drift to these two ancient sages, and their stories offer this tiny glimmer of hope.
降来垂钓碧溪上，忽复乘舟梦日边.
He imagines himself as them, just fishing idly, waiting patiently, or dreaming of greatness even when you're in a humble position. This is the poem's crucial turning point.
These guys were symbols of the ultimate comeback story, born from immense patience. Zhang Sheng was this old fisherman, completely overlooked until he was almost 90 years old, when a king finally recognized his genius. And Yi Yin was a cook, a servant, and he rose to become the most trusted minister of a whole dynasty. For Li Bai, their stories are basically proof. You can ignore talent for a while, but you can't deny it forever.
So this little dip into history, it gives him a spark, right? A reason to believe. But it doesn't solve his immediate problem. He is still at that sad farewell dinner and his future is a complete and total unknown. And this is where the internal conflict between the despair he's feeling right now and the hope he's finding in history builds to the poem's absolutely breathtaking climax. He snaps right back to his reality with this cry of anguish. You have to hear the repetition here.
Xing Lu Nan, Xing Lu Nan, 多歧路, 今安在? Hard is the way, hard is the way. So many branching roads, where am I today? So he's right back in that state of confusion, but now, having remembered those ancient sages, something inside him has shifted.
Yes, because out of that confusion, he finds his answer, and it arrives in this final, defiant explosion of optimism that just completely flips the poem's tone from anguish to absolute, unshakable conviction.
Let's just hear that incredible declaration one more time. 长风破浪会有时，直挂云帆济沧海. And if you break it down, it's just amazing. He says, a time will come. It's not a time might come. It is a statement of pure faith in his own destiny. And when that time comes, he will ride the wind and cleave the waves, which is such a powerful metaphor for overcoming any obstacle in his path. He'll hoist his sail so high it actually touches the clouds and cross the entire raging sea. Honestly, it's one of the most profound statements of self-belief in all of world literature.
So what we've really just witnessed is a complete emotional arc. Li Bai has guided us from the absolute bottom of despair at a banquet, through the frustration of a world that seems full of obstacles, to finding a little bit of hope in the stories of the past, and then finally, forging his own future through sheer, unconquerable force of will. He literally turns his greatest failure into this timeless declaration of defiance. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, right? We all face moments when the river seems frozen over, when the mountains feel impassable. The power of this poem more than 1,200 years later is how much it still resonates. So the question is, when you face your own impossible road, what is the cloud sail of belief that you can hoist to carry you forward?